Hello, Sourav Sengupta. Thank you very much for joining us. What a
And
pleasure
thank
to
you,
have
Muriel, for
you.
having me.
Yeah, what a pleasure to have you. I wanted to congratulate you again for your beautiful poem. My God, we had the chills reading it, and we loved every bit of it. The rhythm, the language, the story, everything was perfect. What was your inspiration for writing a poem like that?
First of all, thank you for your kind words. I'm really thrilled that you liked my poem on Ashoka.
I did.
If you speak of inspiration, I guess I am generally interested in history.
Yes,
From an early age, history has been one of my favorite subjects. I've been reading history, and
yes,
I've been traveling all over the country,
yes.
visiting all the Indian archaeological sites. So
Uh,
this is one place that I also visited when I was a kid, which was the
okay.
battlefield of Kalinga. And we study about this particular event in our schools as well, because
Yeah.
it's a very transformational event for the subcontinent. Because if you look at the spread of the Buddha's message, Buddhism
Yes.
as a philosophy, as a religion, it really kind of took off after the Emperor Ashoka fought the Battle of Kalinga, because that after that he kind of developed this missionary zeal to spread. He first of all he adopted that religion himself. He was a Hindu
Yes. Yeah.
king, so
Yeah.
he became a Buddhist, and he sent his children out, his ambassadors out all over the world to spread the Buddha's message. So uh, and 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 a lot of what India is known for today. I mean, if you look at Gandhi and nonviolence and
Yes.
cultural pluralism, tolerance, and all of that, somehow links back to this event in my mind. That this is where it all started,
Yeah.
and and in today's date, the national symbol or the national emblem of India is the four lions of Ashoka.
Yeah.
So, in many
Oh.
ways,
Oh.
Ashoka and Kalinga are linked to Indian history, and that is where my interest kind of came from, and I thought I should write about it. So, if you see, this poem is written in something known as the ballad meter, which is like 14 syllables. It has the sing-song style with rhymes and all.
Yeah.
Kipling's work is in that style. So I
Uh-huh.
looked at a lot of Indian poets also. Very few have written something on this subject in English. So I
Uh-huh.
thought, let me give it a shot and see how people respond to it. So that's how it came about.
It's wonderful. We were very impressed by the level of poetic mastery, because here in America, I think it's a global phenomenon. It's like people have forgotten that poetry is a fine art. So it's supposed to be refined, and you're supposed to pay attention to the level of language you're utilizing in your poem, and also poetry is a genre in its own right. So musicality plays an important role in poems. So when you don't have that, you don't have a poem. You have prose. And what your poem actually made us shift. We decided we would change our editorial line and publish only poems like that, because that's the beauty of poetry. I mean, if you don't have it, if you don't have that, then you have prose and people talking about their stories and whatever happened in their lives. The other thing that was really, really wonderful about your poem is that you're not talking about yourself. I mean, it's not that we don't want to get to know you. Of course, we do. This is why we're having this conversation. But the poetry is about the history of India and a warrior king, and it's elevating. It's not centered around the self. Do you think that it's the tradition of India, which is very, very imbibed with mysticism, that led you, but also I suspect a lot of poets in India, to write like that, not to be centered around the self? And also, is it happening in India too? I mean, are people crushing the genre of poetry and writing about themselves only, and writing like prose.
No, it's interesting. You talked about musicality being a very important musicality, rhyme, rhythm. These are the qualities we associate with poetry traditionally in our mind. In fact, on a separate note, when I was sending out this poem, I was looking for publications
Yeah.
to kind of send this out. There are so many magazines out there. You would be surprised. Maybe you already know
Yeah,
that they clearly say that we don't want to have anything to do with rhyme, rhythm, musicality. That's not poetry in our definition. So that's a separate debate altogether
Oh my
about
God.
free verse and all of
Oh
that.
boy.
So I was really, really happy, thrilled when Ravi Revolution accepted this poem. But yeah, coming back to India, I think there is a very distinct tradition going back like centuries of
Yes.
folk music and folk poetry, which has inspired poets down the generations. So
Yes.
if you look at if you look at the part of India, and India is a big country, it's like a nation of nations, so to
Yeah.
say. So the part of India that I come from or live in, that's Bengal, which is the eastern part. So we speak Bengali, and we have a very, very well-rooted tradition of Baul singers. So
Yes.
so these Baul singers are essentially wandering minstrels. They, go from village to village
Yeah.
with their one-stringed instrument, and essentially they sing, and in exchange of their songs, they beg alms from the village
Yeah.
folk, and that's how they survive. So they live very
Uh-huh.
simple lives, or they lived very simple lives, and the kind of songs they sung, or their poetry that was very deeply philosophical at some level, because they used the
Yes.
language of the vocabulary was very rooted in the soil, very
Yes.
relatable to the people, but in very simple language they would sing of very, very profound truths about God, about the oneness of all
Yeah.
beings, about
Yes.
universe, and
Yes.
stuff like that. Tradition, we also had a tradition of the fisher folk in Bengal. So Bengal is again a land of rivers.
Uh-huh.
So the fishermen and the boatmen who used to ferry the fisher folk, they have their own tradition of folk music called it's called Bhatiali in Bengali. And if you look at some of the great Indian poets like Tagore
Yeah.
or
Yes.
Qazi Nazrul Islam,
Yeah.
their work has
Yeah.
been deeply influenced by these folk traditions. I mean, so I can read out a couple of lines for you if you.
Yes. Please go ahead.
I was talking about Baul. So one of the most famous Bauls in Bengal,
Yeah.
historically famous, is Lalon Fakir. So Lalon is his name, and Fakir is a generic kind of surname attached to every Baul singer, which Fakir essentially means a poor man. So every
Okay.
Baul is known as XYZ Fakir.
Mm-hmm.
So this is called Shab Loke Koi Lalon Ki Jat Shamchare, which translates as this: that everyone asks Lalon, what's your religion in this world? And Lalon answers, what does religion look like? I have never laid eyes on it. Some wear malas, that is Hindu rosaries, around their necks.
Yes.
Others wear tabis, that is Muslim rosaries. And so people say they've got different religions. But do you bear the sign of your religion when you come or when you go? So this is the
Oh, I
kind of
love
uh,
this.
yeah. So in using very, very simple vocabulary and idioms, they will convey something very hard hitting and profound that will capture a very, very universal truth. And yeah, a lot of contemporary work is inspired. If you look at a lot of the music, the musical band, the rock, the pop music
Yes.
that's coming out of India, Bengal, other
Yes.
parts of India. Every part of India is inspired. If you look at Punjab, which is the western part of India, they have their own tradition inspired by their own folk songs, Bhangra and Sufi. Sufi, of course, has
Yes,
has
of
been
course.
influencing large parts of the world. So yeah, I mean, some threads of that inspiration possibly may have crept into my work unconsciously.
Yeah.
Definitely not consciously, but yeah, there we are.